All right, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about what the Chargers should do in this upcoming draft. But before I get into it, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already, and let's get right into it. So the Chargers are kind of in an envious but also unique spot because they're in an envious spot as in 1, 2, and 3 are going to be quarterbacks in this draft, and the Chargers don't need a quarterback. They have their quarterback of the future. They have their franchise guy. They have their cornerstone. Justin Herbert is an absolutely great player, but they're going through a philosophy change, because the Chargers have basically been a throw the ball and just pray that you can, maybe get a turnover sort of team. They've been in so many shootouts over the past few years, but all the weapons that Justin Herbert had have now left. And there is no way that you can convince me that Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston are wide receivers 1 and 2 on the depth chart going into next year. I don't understand how you could have watched the Chargers last year outside of Keenan Allen and been like, yeah, no, Herbert doesn't need more weapons. So even Ekeler at some points after his high ankle sprain didn't look that great. And Mike Williams, losing him on the field, it hurts. On paper, it hurts. But at the same time, he was never available. And the best ability is availability when you're a wide receiver. So yeah, I just don't really think it was that big of a loss in the grand scheme of things. But before getting into what I think they should do in this year's draft, they're going through a big culture change. They're going through a big identity change because the Jim Harbaugh philosophy is run the ball and play good defense. The Chargers have not been able to do either of those over the past few years. Their run game has been absolutely anemic. But that's because their run game has basically been Austin Ekeler checkdowns for the most part. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see how Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh basically adapt this team and mold it to what Harbaugh wants it to become and mold it to his philosophy while balancing what they currently are, while balancing it with their current roster. So when I think about what the Chargers should do at number 5, like I said, they get their pick of the litter basically on any position. They don't need a quarterback. So number 4, Arizona is probably going Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you can pretty much write that in Sharpie at this point. But the good thing is that all these receivers are kind of in the same tier, and all these receivers are really good. So Arizona could pivot to neighbors. Arizona could pivot to Odunze, and honestly, it wouldn't be that big of a surprise. It would probably be a surprise in the sense that Marvin Harrison Jr. has been touted as this generational wide receiver, but there's 2 other really, really, really good ones in this class that would make sense as top 5 picks, just going around how good they are. So number 5 is probably going to be the second non-quarterback off the board. But one thing I have not mentioned is they could still trade back. They could trade back with Minnesota, and they could accumulate a bunch of picks because Minnesota just traded for the Texans first. So in the sense that the Chargers could trade back, I could see that. Now, that's pretty much the only trade back or trade up candidate, at least in the teens, because I definitely don't think the Chargers would trade back with the Broncos or Raiders, both teams who need to add at the QB room, but are likely staying outside the top 10. So the Broncos are probably just going to have to settle with Bo Nix, and the Raiders are probably just going to have to settle with Michael Penix. Not in the top 13, though. I think those guys go later. But at the same time, I think Malik Neighbors and or Rome Odunze should be plan number 1 for the Chargers in this draft. But as far as other needs within this team, corner, center, they've needed a center since Linsley retired, and interior defensive line as well. So as far as the most pressing need for the Chargers, it is 1,000% wide receiver. Now the question is, how do you attack the other positions? Because I think there's a lot of really good interior offensive linemen in this class, but there doesn't seem to be that many centers. So do you trade up? Do you trade back? And if you do trade back from number 5, then you're probably staring at center as the number 1 position of need that they're going to take. So that's pretty good in itself. And corner is always a wild card because, yeah, you have guys like Surtain, you have guys like Stingley, you have guys like Sauce Gardner in the draft. Pretty much not every year, but in a good bit of years. And there's no top flight corner option in this draft. Edge, the first defensive player is probably going to be an edge rusher. It's probably going to be one of Turner or Verse. And when I think about what the Chargers need, edge definitely doesn't fit the philosophy. Let's be honest. Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack both took pay cuts to stay on this team. So they have edge figured out for at least one more year. And I could see the Chargers going with a bookend option other than to complement Slater. I could see them helping out the other side. And this is a very tackle-rich draft. And a lot of people think that the Chargers will go tackle. I don't think that's going to happen. You could take Joe Alt. You could take Olu. You could take, I don't know, Fuaga. You could take one of the other guys. But I think plan A needs to be wide receiver. Now, as far as the rest of their needs, you cannot leave this draft if you're the Chargers without coming out with a legit option at wide receiver for Justin Herbert. And when I mean legit option, I mean you can't wait until like the 4th or 5th round to take one, because yes, you have guys like Puka, you have guys like Tank Dell, you have guys like Amon-Ra, but those guys are few and far between. If anyone wants to disagree, I'm happy to talk about it, because everyone always remembers the hits from that bucket. Nobody remembers the millions of other guys who busted. Not millions, because there's never been that many players drafted, but nobody remembers the amount of players that have been taken past the 3rd round that have busted, and historically they're very, very bad bets to succeed. So you need to get Herbert a legit weapon. You need to get legit offensive line help, particularly at center. And yeah, so that's just basically what I think the Chargers should do to attack this upcoming draft. That's what I think their most pressing needs are. And leave a like if you enjoy, and subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.